Well, Steve, I bet you know where we're going to start. A new signing. This has got tongues are wagging across football.
Has it? I don't know about that because we've only been training, but it's funny because we first. I presume you're talking about Andreas anyway.
Yes,
yeah. I mean, we probably discussed him probably a good 6 weeks ago-ish. At the time then, he'd obviously gone back and spent the second half of the season in Austria. We didn't know really at the time what quite his plans were going to be in terms of, was he going to maybe uproot, move from where he lives at the moment. Then found out that he was going to stay in this country. So it was just something really to revisit, and it's ended up happening. It's funny because after the initial 6 weeks, I would say that when it come around this time, it happened very, very quickly. So that was pleasing. He's a great lad. I know him from his time at Bristol City, not when I was there, but he was there with a few of the lads that I know. I think he was still there with Robbie Cundy. Robbie Cundy would have been there with him. Nursey would have been young, but Nursey would have been there with him, I'm pretty sure. So he knew a couple of lads in the dressing room anyway, and all the lads, as I've said before, they're a great set of lads. They'll get on with anyone as long as the anyone is all right themselves. So, yeah, we're pleased to have Andreas on board, and we look forward to working with him. Quite where he'll be at the moment, fitness-wise, he's already a fit boy. He's just finished doing a half marathon the other day. So you don't do one of those without having some sort of level of fitness. So we'll see where he is. He's trained with us this morning. Ended up probably by the end of the session doing more than everybody else had done, because we, with our medicals, we sort of do a physical test as well. So he's ended up having quite a busy day. So I'm sure he'll sleep well tonight.
But I guess he hasn't got any game time under his belt. Is that what you just worried for now, just to see what you can get out of him?
I'm not worried about it. I think that will come with experience. Whereas if you're not so experienced and you haven't got much game time behind you, you don't know sometimes whether to conserve your energy or not. I'm sure he'll know how to do that should the time arise. But yeah, I don't have any worries really with him.
So is he an option for Rotherham?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And this, of course, coming at a time when you've started the week with a young prospect. You've got somebody who really knows the game, and you brought in this young prospect as well, which has excited quite a few people. I know a few clubs wanted to bring in Jake Evans as well. What can you tell us about that move?
Yeah, I mean, Jake is one I've been after for a while, and forget that he's 17. I would forget that straight away for anybody looking at him. He's a great young man. I love sitting down and I had a Zoom call with his mum and dad. I love doing that. They seem great, down to earth people. And Jake has done very well in the start of his career. And with knowing Russell, I had a conversation with Russell at Leicester, Russell Martin, and they allowed us to have him and Kirsten. So Jake will do well for us, for sure. I'm pretty sure about that. So it doesn't matter what order they come in. As I've said before, sometimes the order doesn't come in exactly how you would like them. But I think we have quite a young, healthy squad this year. And even when you talk about our older players, when you might be talking about James Wilson, you might be talking about Joe Day maybe, they are still extremely, extremely fit for their age. So, good professionals are good professionals, and they're worth their weight in gold. So I'm sure that Andreas will bring some added experience, professionalism to the dressing room, just through his habits. And not that any of them that we've signed here are bad professionals, because that wouldn't be something that I would really want. So, yeah, we're quite happy. When I think about you know, the 10 players that we've brought in, admittedly Favour, you know, was more of a, I suppose, a calculated risk. It's not anything that's going to put the club at financially. In fact, with Harry going out, it ended up being a straight swap financially. So that one is one maybe a little bit for the future. And yeah, now we need to just wait and see and let them bed in and let the squad breathe, really.
And with Kirsten, Jake and Favour, now with somebody like Andy in the building, I mean, that's a great person to learn from, isn't it? From their point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he will without doubt be a good role model to them. You know, when I look at a lot of the sides I've had, you know, I've had some really, really young players over the years that I've ended up giving debuts to. You know, when I was at Burnley, there was Kyle Lafferty, Gary Cahill. They went on to be internationals. Chris McCann, when I look at Nottingham Forest, Jamal Lascelles, Patrick Bamford at Stoke, Chris Commons. All of those boys have gone on to be internationals. So they would have all had, though, in and around them, some good experienced pros. Even when I think back to the young boys coming in and coming through the youth team when I was here, the likes of Michael Duff, they always had good experienced pros alongside them, like Chris Banks, for instance. You know, so all of those teams, it's just getting that sprinkling right of, you know, are they still going to be good enough to do a job for you on the pitch? Probably most of the time. Have they got the legs to do that for you on the pitch? So I think as long as that happens, I think it's a win-win situation.
And with Kirsten and Jake coming as a pair almost from Leicester City, you did a similar thing with, there was a kind of a Wrexham feel to the loans last year. Does that help them settle a bit quicker?
Well, it probably does help them settle quicker. Probably helps that, because they've always got a go-to in the dressing room, haven't they? But that wasn't necessarily done intentionally, and it also wasn't done intentionally with Wrexham. Sometimes what happens when you're studying teams or younger teams or pre-season, there's another one. You might be looking at one specific player, but another one will catch your eye. And then all of a sudden, you go onto that one as well and saying, well, you know, if we do this, can we do that as well? You know, it could have been quite easy. I could take another two from Leicester because I've looked at them and they've caught my eye. So, and probably I could have done exactly the same at Wrexham. That isn't the case, and it's not intentional. It just sometimes can happen like that. And then it's about, I don't know, will the manager, will the club trust you with their young players?
And now you've brought in these two lads this week as well. How many spaces do you have? You talked recently about somebody you were looking at who might cost a nominal fee. Is that one still on?
I don't know. Okay. That's me. That's not them.
Yeah.
That's me thinking, I don't know.
Okay.
Not for any bad reason. Just we're looking at what might we need now in the squad to probably finish us off, without then all of a sudden having to delve too much in the upcoming window, really, that you don't really want to shop in, if I'm brutally honest, unless you can do something in it that ends up being permanent for you and it can take you beyond next summer. You know, everybody, you can bet your life, everybody, when January comes, everyone will be saying the same. And I'll tell you what they'll be saying the same thing about this window now. How hard has this window been? This window has been incredibly hard, which probably means the January window is going to be even worse. So we've ended up bringing in 10 players now in total, and I think we've done really well on what we've spent on bringing those 10 players in. I think we've done really well.
And you brought them in before the start of the league season as well, which can't be easy as well to get those 10 players in.
No, the job isn't easy, full stop. So, it doesn't matter who you are. If you look around the country, there'll be lots of, lots of supporters that will be saying, we need this winger, we need this striker, we need this. I read the other day, Arsenal who got to the Champions League final and he won a Premier League. I read that they're struggling to sign a left winger and a striker. That's Arsenal. So if that's Arsenal, what chance have the rest of us got? So, it's a tough gig.
And it starts all tomorrow, of course, against Rotherham.
That's the other side of the gig.
That's the other side of the gig, the playing side of the gig. 13 years it's been since they've been in League Two, so there's a bit of pressure, expectancy from their fans as well. And obviously a difficult tie to start your campaign, but you're at home as well. I guess it's a big bonus for you.
Yeah, I mean, Rotherham's they're a bigger club than what we are for sure. And whenever they've been in League Two, they've obviously been strong, and they've been strong enough in League One as well over the last, few years. I know last year didn't go right for them for whatever reason. But a mention to Alex Bruce, who's gone in there, who's a young manager. I think he's done an incredible job in pre-season. An incredible job, and he's a really, really nice young man as well. I like him. I probably know his dad more than I know him. That's a good shout. That makes me sound old, that, doesn't it? But
you've just signed a player who can't buy you a pint.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's okay. That's what happens in football. So I think Alex has done an incredible job, and I'm sure he will do a good job at Rotherham for sure. But they are normally strong when they come down. Rotherham, they have been strong for years. So I know they've had a bit of a change around, but one thing's for sure, we won't be fooled by any of that, by comments, by anyone predicting anything. So we're going to have it all on. We're going to have to play well tomorrow to win the game, that's for sure. And we'll try and do that. But a shout for Alex. I think he's done great since he's been in the job.
Yeah, he's obviously having a bit of a reset. He's brought in new players as well as himself coming in as well. Is there an Alex Bruce style of football that you're expecting? Because it's very early on, isn't it, to do your kind of research?
Well, I think they've done a bit of everything, if I'm honest. I think they've done a bit of everything. I've watched a couple of their games now. They're not shy at getting it forward, but that might depend on the directness of it, whoever plays as their 9. But they've had some really nice football. I know the result for them last week, similar to ours, didn't go how they would want it to go. But in patches last week, if you look at some of their passing moments, I thought they were good last week. I think just what happened was West Brom were very good. And the same you could say almost about our game. And do you know what? Those results last week, they're not going to mean anything come kick-off tomorrow. And it's not going to mean tomorrow isn't necessarily going to mean anything in 6 games' time or 12 games' time. The league won't settle down until you've probably got to about 14, 15 games on the board. So the first game of the season, it's always a tricky one for everyone. So when everyone says, looking forward to the new season, what do you expect and all that? Do you know the honest answer? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So everybody hopes to do well. And let's see what we can do.
I just mentioned, obviously, one player that stands out, that he's managed to persuade Paul Mullin to take his football up with Rotherham as well. Yeah. I was having a look. I can't believe he's only 31. He seems to be playing football forever, doesn't he? But obviously a useful acquisition.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think already, like I said, depends on how that 9 looks and how you're going to play. But the one thing for sure, Paul loves his football. That'll be the most important thing, So whilst it seems as though he's been around for a long time, it's probably because he has. And that's a credit as well. So I'm sure that he'll want to do well for them, and I'm sure he'll do well for them this season. Just hopefully he doesn't do that well tomorrow. But, I wouldn't wish any ill thoughts on anyone. We just have to make sure we try and do our job. But yeah, I know to date he's had a great career, and it's not finished yet. And I think that, he'll help Alex with that, I'm pretty sure.
And a big day for Sean McWilliams.
Yeah.
League Two debut for Cheltenham against his former club.
Yeah, strange one really, how it works out, isn't it? When the fixtures come out, you think, how does that fall? But it does. But I spoke to Sean this morning, and I said to him, don't make the game any bigger than what the game really is, because the game's just another game. The fact that sometimes you go and play against your old club, you end up thinking you've got to do more than what you actually can do. So I said, don't do that. Just be part of the team. If he plays as well as he played last week, we'll have no worries about Sean in tomorrow's game or any other game. Because last week, he would have been, certainly him and Jonathan Tompkinson were our standout performers in that game last week. It's a pity I can't mention a few more, but I think there was a few more that didn't have particularly a good game last week. But last week is last week. What you don't know is what's gone through their head, how hard they trained last week. Sometimes some people can have it, and you can wake up some days and think, I'm not sure I fancy a game today. And then it's what you do early in the game, and then what you've got to do is try and do that well, because then that gets you into it. And sometimes that can happen to you as a player. You wake up. It doesn't normally happen in the first game, I have to say, but sometimes when there's 30 games gone on down the line, you think, well, I could just do with a break this week. But I suppose that's my job really, having a look and trying to read when they need a break. But other than that, we're ready to go.
And can I ask you about the captain? Obviously, James Wilson's got the injury at the start of the season. You brought in some fresh faces as well. Who is going to be your captain this season?
James Wilson. Yeah, James will stay captain. There's no reason to change that. I think people would look at that and they'd think, are you going to give Pearce the captain because he's been captain at Exeter for 10 years? He can still be a captain, just hasn't got to wear the armband. And I've said, James Wilson, there is no need for me to dent the confidence or the trust that you gain with the captain that you had last year if he's at your club again this year. So I don't see that I need to do that. And I also think this: if you bring a player in fresh, and then you've got quite a few of the existing players still here, what you can do there is you can make it about, well, this is the new boys gang and this is the old boys gang, which is something I actually don't do that. So for me, I wouldn't want to put any other pressure on any other player by going to them and saying, well, you're going to be the captain now. Because if, say for instance, I name Pearce because it's an obvious one, because he's been captain for 10 years at Exeter. And could he captain us? Of course he could. Of course he could. But the trouble is, if I go and give that to him, I then put him under pressure within the group. And also I take something away from James, who since I've been here has been a good captain for me. He does things right, he's a great professional. So I don't see that. So whenever James is fit and available and he plays, he'll be captain. In the meantime, what I did in pre-season was I gave it to Ben Stevenson, simply for the same sort of reason. He'd been here, he'd been a main part of what we'd done last year. So I needed to try him out with it, and I needed to see whether he could wear it.
And it seems this whole pre-season is about building on those foundations that you put in place last year, that you worked so hard for, to stay up, and also to start the foundations of a new side. Yeah,
well, it is. Yeah, the foundations of a new side, like you say, with 10 players coming in, that there certainly will be competition there. And we haven't finished yet. Maybe if I could get 2 more, our squad would be complete. But they've got to be 2 of the right ones. Otherwise, we won't be taking anyone. But yeah, it's almost like it's another new side to get going again, because there's some things that we've done in the week and some players don't quite know yet because they haven't been here long enough what we would do in maybe that instance. But they're all having a go at it and they're all in. They're very good with each other. They look really comfortable in each other's company. The new boys coming in, I say the new boys, so probably the newer boys that never came to Spain with us, I think that one's always harder to fit in. But certainly those people who went away to Spain, they are absolutely tight and close now. But the others will get there, I'm pretty sure, in the coming weeks.
And it all starts at Wadden Road for you, somewhere which was so important to the successes of last season.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't particularly have a good away record, but yet we had some really good results away from home last year. So, you know, the crowd are obviously really, really important at home. And, you know, if you've seen it at most places, I think that if you look at it, I don't think Rotherham had a particularly good away record last year, but, you know, but their home form wouldn't have been where it's probably been in the past. So, you know, that can happen. Sometimes it can happen where you've got a team where they like playing at home, and other times where they prefer playing away. Sometimes it just depends on the moment and where you are in that season, and where the pressure is or where the pressure isn't. So I'm not overly bothered about home or away really, because pretty much the pitch is going to be the same size, and they're not going to have any more men than us.
And finally, got to say the lads must be pleased to see the forecast coming down to 24 degrees tomorrow rather than the 30s.
Yeah, coming down to 24. I mean, my God. You know, I would imagine up and down the country, you know, we wouldn't be the only ones that have, you know, suffered with this, especially when you're talking about the most intense time for a footballer. That is really important. And whilst they're in pre-season, the thing that you want more than anything else is for them to go home and have a good night's sleep. We all know how difficult that's been lately, of having a good night's sleep. However, what we shouldn't do is we shouldn't be moaning, because you know what we're going to be doing in a couple of months? We're going to be saying, oh my God, it's freezing cold out there, and everyone's going to have bobble hat and gloves and everything else on. So let's try and enjoy it while it lasts. It would be ideal if it was warm through the day, but a bit of rain at night, so the pitches and all the grass was green and all of that. That would be fantastic. But, you know, as I said before, the weather, it doesn't pay any attention to criticism.
Good luck for the season.
Thank you.